see if I can do something. There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we got a little bit. Nothing to write home to mom about, but we got a little bit.
You know, we obviously down here in Texas, we're not accustomed to anything like that. And the last two nights, well, last night, yeah, pretty much last night, and then the night before, temperatures got down into the 20s. No snow or anything down here in Houston area, but we had actually my sprinkler system broke last night. Water spraying all over the side of my house. So that's about the extent of what we get down here.
So the problems of having a sprinkler system that breaks.
Yeah.
Versus someone who doesn't have a sprinkler system, stands out there with a garden hose and a thumb method. You know, they just got to worry about whether their thumb can handle the pressure for an hour and a half of water.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's all about life, right? The simple things that we take for granted.
Well, yeah, I look at it from that perspective. I mean, yeah, mine broke last year too. And it cost me like $150 to fix it. And so I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, is it that really big of a deal? Like it's saving me time and all this other stuff. So it's like, yeah, it's the little things. You got to be grateful for it just to, but down here in Texas, you know, it gets so hot.
Sure.
You know,
yeah, when we're complaining that it's, you know, it's getting up to 80 degrees, you're saying, shut up.
Yeah.
We got 102.
Exactly. This last summer was pretty mild, but this year was, or the year before was brutal. I mean, we spent like we had 90 days, I think, over 100 degrees.
Wow.
And it goes all the way through the beginning of October. It's pretty brutal, but
so
anyway,
I would assume that air conditioning is a requirement.
You know, actually they, I think so ironically that you say that. I was talking to somebody about this the other day. So Mecca over in the Middle East is the largest AC structure in the world. Okay. Houston, Texas is the most air-conditioned city in the world.
Wow.
Yeah, there's more square footage under with air conditioning here in Houston than anywhere else in the entire world. So
for all those HVAC guys that are looking for work, Texas is the place to be.
we have like, I mean, like last year, trades in general, plumbers, electricians, HVAC guys. I run a construction company, so I can tell you.
Okay.
We last year, for example, like plumbers, it was taking anywhere from, you know, because of all the pipes that broke here in Texas, it would take people, it was taking plumbers up to 45 days to show up just to fix, you know, one or two broken lines in people's houses. HVAC guys are backed up now, just even in the winter, 2 to 3 weeks just to be able to come out to look at one duct. Like I've got one here in my game room that I believe has been sweating and causing a stain on my ceiling. And the AC guys they're 3 weeks out just to be able to come take a look at it. And I run a construction company. Like, you know, I'm like, these are trades that work for me all of the time. And that's just, that's how busy they are. So anyway, yeah.
Is that due to the amount of work that's down there, or is that due to the lack of people in the trade?
It's a little bit of both. See, Houston's a really weird environment. It's everything here is very industrial and very old. And what has happened over the last 20 years, kind of like what around the rest of the country is everybody was pushing for college. And there was fewer people actually going into trades. And so, but then Houston, it's almost like we're recession proof. We've never really suffered the ups and downs of the economy. Building and business really has never, ever in the 35 years I've lived here now, we've not seen slowdowns ever. Throughout, I mean, literally through 100% of the pandemic, building did not stop here. I mean, they built 2 new high rises downtown. They were building, I mean, just, it was insane. So it's a combination of the two where it's a shitload of work that's going on here. And then simply not enough people. So,
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
I think it's everywhere. I think it's all facets of life, from restaurants to hotels to, like you said, the trades. I mean, building a house, how many days out, getting a custom boot, how many days out, buying material, how many days out, it's everything. Yeah.
Well, yeah, now obviously with everything that's going on, just with like 60% of the products that are used here in the United States come out of China. And so everything's slowed down. Everything's under some, massive delay. I was actually dating a girl here who works for a large shipping company based out of Australia. And, they ship something like 30,000 containers a day. That's their average that their company ships. And she was telling me that it's not, there is, she said something like 30 or 40% of the delays are caused because of China. But the rest of it is simply not having enough containers, enough ships, things like that. So the costs of all these resources have literally gone from the average cost of like $3,000 to ship a 40-foot container to about $14,000 to ship these containers. And that was simply just because the resources, the physical containers don't exist. Which is obviously causing all the, a shitload of delays too. But anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Chris, we'll dive right into this because I had a conversation with Fred, Fourth. Everybody knows him as Fourth Lacey.
Yeah. I don't know him, but I know the name.
Yeah, great guy. We've known each other since we were 10, live a mile apart. So we constantly talk about these different aspects, the things that are being brought up. And when I told him I was having you come on, we started going down this road of different governing bodies and different, how to unify them and how to make them best. Because obviously we skated in the early to late 90s. I think he skated all the way. His last time to make the world team, I think, was 2002. Mine was 1999. So our perspective on things is a little bit skewed. Obviously, there's been a tremendous amount of changes in the sport, not only in the size of numbers and, overall enrollment in the sport, but how the organizations themselves are run. And, obviously I did the show with Jim Larson, and, he put a lot of different ideas out there. And that's when you reached out to kind of discuss what you're seeing and kind of what's happening out there. And so, man, I really appreciate you coming on and, let me know what is it that is going on in the sport today with these different leagues or governing bodies, so to speak.
Sure. So as far as, I think to bring a point up, I think it's important to say, everybody talks about unifying, and not that I disagree with that. I totally agree with the unification of things, because I think when you bring two parts together, you make one large part, and that can be a good thing. However, nobody says that McDonald's and Burger King should unify and become one big hamburger franchise, or let's get McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's together so we can have, one big gigantic conglomerate of hamburger making. I think the idea of having multiple organizations only adds to, one, accountability. If I'm doing something as an organization and you're doing something as an organization, and people in your organization see me doing something, let's say that's perceived to be better, your organization is going to demand that you make the change and that you figure out how to at least accommodate what I'm doing, match what I'm doing, or better what I'm doing. And vice versa. If your organization did something that was better than my organization, I'm either going to become irrelevant really quickly, or I'm going to have to step my game up. So I think that sheer competition in the sense of organizations is a good thing. The problem that people are facing with two organizations is the volume of competitors within the organization. And if you take, 10 people and you split them up, you only have 5 people in each group. And that would appear to be something that's a negative, because now we were 10 strong, now we're only 5 strong on either side of this equation. But I tend to look at the glasses, half full, not half empty. If you take 5 people and I take 5 people and you grow to 10 and I grow to 10, we've now doubled through our own forces. We've doubled the involvement of whatever me and you are doing. And I think that ultimately the ideal of growth is the important thing. And not that there's ever been an issue with growth, because if you think about even from your time and era of competing, how many people started the sport in the time frame you started, and how many of those people were gone by the time you got out? And I think you'll find that there's far more loss in the sport or more gain rather than there is loss, because there's still people in the sport. However, a big chunk of them leave. So why? What's the retention point? That it's not about, is there another organization that's doing something I don't like? Is there another organization that's competing against me that's going to make me have to be stronger? I mean, imagine if every race you ever raced, nobody could challenge you. How fun would it have been to just go out and win every race? Yeah, I won every race. Look at me. I'm number one. Yeah, but you lapped second place every race you ever raced. Congratulations. You beat up on the losers. Good for you. Are you a champion? I don't think so. Are you the best? Yeah, you are. Good for you.
Well, now, but go back to your real quick. Go back to your McDonald's and Burger King analogy, and I may be completely wrong about this. So sure. If you go eat at McDonald's, you still have the ability to go eat at Burger King. There's not a contract you sign or agreement you make that says I'm only going to eat at Burger King or McDonald's.
That's correct.
I know when I was skating that there was the attempt to create other leagues, and USARS at the time, it was USAC. If you skated for USAC, if you had a USAC card and you went and skated one of these other unaffiliated races or unaffiliated organizations, that they could pull your USAC card. The only exception to that was, I think there was it was the beginning of, it might've been the beginning of like USA Roller Sports or something like that, where they were the sanctioning body behind the Ultimate Inline Challenge and like the X Games and a couple of these very, very large events that were being televised. So it wasn't like they couldn't go in and say, you know what, you guys can't skate this event, because these were the only events that were making it on ESPN. But so going back to that, if I go to McDonald's, I go to Burger King, I can still go to Wendy's the very next day.
Yeah.
Is that set up the same way with these organizations, to where if you got these 5 kids over here that they're in this league, and one day they decide they want to go skate an event over in this league, can they do that back and forth without having any kind of conflict between the two?
As far as one-offs that I'm not aware of, because I don't know the internal workings of either organization, because I'm not a part of the actual boards, or I'm not in the inner workings of either organizations. I'm a coach and I run a league. So the reality is I can't say that there's not been anybody that's been told, if you go here or you go there, you can't come back. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But what I can tell you is I have athletes that are carded in both organizations. A lot of the teams within my league have people carded in both organizations. People out east. Jeff Foster has people carded in both organizations. Patty Laser has people carded in both organizations. Dave Weber has people carded in both organizations. Out west, they have people carded in both organizations, out in the Colorado area. So I don't think that there's an organization that's saying it's either us or nothing. I think the organizations are saying, this is what I have to offer. If it's appealing to you, come on, get an amateur card and compete at whatever events are available in your area or wherever you want to travel to. And then on the other side, the other organization says, well, this is what they offer, but this is what we offer. And if you like what we have to offer you, come our way. And I think both organizations, again, are in a sense helping each other out, because when one organization does something really good or that's appealing to a certain set of people, then everybody else recognizes that. And you get that tug and war back and forth, that competition of no different than you can go to Burger King, but McDonald's has the 2 for whatever. Oh, that's more appealing. There's a better price point. So I'm going to go to that McDonald's rather than that Burger King. And I think that USARS and USRSS has the same thing. And by the way, it's US Roller Speed Skating. So I just want to bring a point out. I want to touch base on it really quick, and then we'll bypass it. We'll get away from it because I think it's a negative condensation, and I don't like it. Years ago, a good friend of mine had an organization, and his organization, the acronym was really close to the word ISIS. And several people that did not like this person used the term, oh, he's got the ISIS program, skating program. Yeah. And it drove me bat crazy, because it's calling somebody an N-word. It's calling somebody a racial slur for whatever your nationality is. It's bad talking somebody for the sake of just bad talking somebody with no malice. I don't take very kindly to the term of USRSS. Sounds like Russia because the acronym is close. It's hurtful. It's hurtful to anybody that says I'm a part of this organization, because it's no different than saying the N-word. It's no different than calling an Italian person, an Italian slur, or a Mexican person, or even me being called a cracker. It's offensive, and I don't think we should use offensive terms if we truly are in the sport to build. Now, I guess if you're a part of wanting to destroy the sport and you say, hey, I'm just going to try to destroy any entity that's not with me, I guess it's okay. But for me, I think that it's a horrible mindset to have if we all really love our sport and want it to grow. I don't think we should condemn other people and try to point out things that may sound. It's US roller speed skating. It's what it is.
So. Now, I obviously the other day, the first time I'd ever heard of this, I'd ever heard of US roller speed skating, USRSS, was when I talked to Jim. Jim Larson was on my show on Tuesday, and Jim and I have interacted pretty heavily over the last couple of years because of the pandemic. Me being in construction, something I've always done is built. Since I was a little kid, I've tinkered and built things. And when the pandemic hit, I just wasn't able to travel for my job. So I was at home building things, and I was videotaping it, and I was putting it up on, Facebook and all that stuff. And that's kind of stuff, it inspired Jim to start doing things inside his house. And so we started talking more kind of on a regular basis. And so Jim and I have conversations from time to time, probably once or twice a month, just reaching out and saying hi. And he had mentioned to me, not really going into detail, because Chris, as you know, coming on here, there's no script. You and I, you asked me a couple questions, and I was just like, we just kind of go for it. And that's exactly how I did it with Jim, even with, knowing him. And he didn't go into detail that it was, US roller speed skating. He didn't, he just happened to make the comment about it. And I have to say that even like last night, I was watching the opening ceremonies, and of course, back in the 80s, it was USSR. Now it's, it's the US, the Russian Federation and all that other stuff. You can't deny that it's there. I certainly, when I saw that, or when I heard it, certainly didn't think for one second that, there is the connotation that these people are Russian or these people are, communist, anything like that. It's the similarity was kind of striking to me. But what is it? What is it that US roller speed skating offers that is different from USARS, or sorry, US,
USARS.
USARS. What, like, why I not saying it's good or bad. Fred and I talked about this. It's like, okay, well, you have Major League Baseball. You have the American League and you have the National League. In the American League, you have the designated hitter rule. But at some point, rather than having a world champion determined based on the American League rules, there becomes some type of standardization through an all-star game and of course, when you go to the World Series, it's all right. If we're in the American League stadium, we're going to play under the American League rules. Obviously, they're making a change. Even the National League is going to a designated hitter rule this next season. However, what is it that sets the two apart? Why would somebody pick to go to USA roller sports versus USA roller speed skating?
Well, so there's several things going on, and going back to the beginning when it started. Let's just go back to 30 years ago. 30 years ago, people complained, right? They didn't like things. They didn't like the way a call was made, and they thought, man, I wish we could revamp this rule where a person wasn't getting DQ'd for a call that everybody in the stands seen it was a bad call, but the official, in his judgment or her judgment, made the call. And everybody's had to live with it because it was a judgment call. You can't protest it. Right. So everybody complained. They complained about a starting procedure. They complained about pylon setups. They complained about track sizes. They complained about where they can stand at versus where they can't stand at. I mean, coaches have complained for years and will continue to complain just because you can't make everybody happy. But what happened was this new group, when it came along, it took a handful of officials, which for speaking purposes were all USARS officials, that had listened and compiled information over the years of complaints of coaches in the side aisles and at the end in the coach's box and in coaches' meetings. And they said, if we could take this 78-page rule book and just throw it away and write a whole new set of rules, how many rules do we need? Where can we get rid of the gray areas and make it black and white? Because gray areas is where you get in trouble, because that's where opinion filters in.
Yeah.
And they condensed a 78-page rule book that was designed for skating. Nothing wrong with it. Those rules were developed over years, and they condensed it down to a book that was 16 pages long. And they said, these are the rules. And these are the rules that we feel are the most important rules. We got rid of what they felt like was the garbage. As a coach, I pride myself on being a student of paying attention to great coaches, really great coaches. But not any one coach is perfect or does everything right. And a lot of it is programs, it's areas, it's economic standings of the team. You got a real wealthy team, you can push custom boots on everybody. Everybody can afford it. You got a team where they can barely afford practice fees. People are buying used equipment off of, used sites and friends and whatnot, where they can get them cheap because they can't afford it. So everybody has their own reasons why they want certain things to be a certain way. So that being said, they created a rule book. I happen to like the rules. There's several rules. The average rules are the same. You can't cut pylons, you get DQ'd. You can't just push somebody down. You can't trip somebody. You can't look back and lean into somebody and push them over. I mean, all the basics of how skating is done is the same. None of that's changed. The difference is they went to a radius track. You could call it the NYRA track. However, the radius track existed before NYRA came along. So it was called something before that. And whoever did it before that, it was called something before that. It's a radius track that they've set up with a certain width of a straightaway and a certain width of a turn. And the beauty of it is the track in the sense of how the track is laid out. From my speaking purposes, it's easier to set up on any floor. Now there's a set size floor that it would go on, that the track is exactly what the track should be. But as the floor gets smaller, the beauty of it is the track size changes, but the track size doesn't change. The diameter changes. It's still 17.2 from wall to the inside. It's going to be 17.2 on a 70-foot floor, and on an 80-foot floor, it's going to be 17.2. It doesn't change. The skating track doesn't change in width. The radius will change because the wider the floor, obviously, the bigger the circumference of circle, because it is 17.2 on the outside. I like that. What I can tell you is in the last 4 years of running a league and being a part of a league that's ran this track, far fewer calls for right outs and right ins are called. Not because officials are swallowing whistles, but because there's no pinch point of 1 and 3 anymore. You got this, the inside of the radius is, 7 feet away from where pylon 1 would be. And, and the USARS track's not a rectangle. The pylons are off-centered. They're shifted. It's not a full rectangle. It's off-centered to create the apex at a point and give you a little easier option to run out. So the run out's safer and better. It's a bigger area, but the entry to the turn, it's tight. Everybody's running to get to that pylon and to hold that inside line. On a perfect radius where it's nice and round, the fastest way around, it's not against the pylons. Anybody knows you run tight against the pylons, you're running the smallest portion of the track, where if you open it up and you enter, on my floor, you actually enter at top speeds on the USARS track, because I got both tracks laid out on my floor. And if you skate our track at the fastest you can skate it, you literally skate the USARS pylons, even though we have the USARSS pylons on the floor. So the USARS track, I can tell you 100 meters is wall to pylons, hold your pylons, go to the wall. That's a 100-meter track. USARSS track is pylon to pylon all the way around, and a paperclip is 100 meters. So when you go out to the wall 17.2 and you come back 17.2 to get to the pylons, you've traveled 34 feet on one side, 34 on the other side, 64 feet more for the track. So that track size does grow when you're actually out on the fastest part of the track. So it's bigger than 100 meters when you actually fully skate the track.
So, well, so you're the coach of Bell Speed.
Correct.
Do you own the rink as well?
No.
Okay.
No,
so
the Dunlap family have owned it for the last, I think, 80 years.
Okay. So I know that when I was skating, that a big contingent, one of the biggest things, and this may have been a result, or may be why, something like, US roller speed skating has come about, was that when I was skating, almost all the coaches, a very large majority of the coaches, owned the skating rinks. Mm-hmm. Or were involved. I mean, you had Paul Hedrick, you had David Downing, you had
sure.
Ed Mueller. You had a lot of that going on. And then within USARS, USAC at the time, there was a heavily entrenched, kind of good old boy network, where everything was organized to benefit the smallest group of people. The money and everything from the sport felt like it was constantly flowing to these rink operators rather than back into the sport. The events were set up solely for generating revenue for the rink owners. Which, hey, can't fault them for it. But now, with, it's my understanding, like USARS, they have essentially eliminated, or made an effort at least to eliminate, that kind of good old boy network. So where you guys are not you guys, but USARS,
no, it's okay. You can say. Yeah.
The rules are essentially, you guys said, hey, look, we don't like the rules that are going on over here at USAC. They refuse to change them. We're going to create our own league, and we're going to create the rules that we like in a form and fashion that we like. Would it not have been more beneficial for the sport overall to eliminate the people that were essentially causing the problem? Was it just too difficult? I mean, look, when I quit skating, I was young. I mean, I was 19, 20 years old, obviously not understanding the politics of everything going on.
Sure.
I grew up in a family that owned a business. So I understood, the business side of things, but obviously I wasn't involved in the politics. Would it not have been better overall for the sport to essentially get those guys out that were strangleholding the sport, keeping it from really expanding into and changing these rules, rather than creating a complete other league?
I would say no, not possible. And is it possible? Sure, anything's possible. You can't say no. But what I will say is under the circumstance of where things are today, and just go to politics, right? So, and that's what you're talking about is politics. So right now in our country, we have a 50-50 split. Democratic power, with Democrats holding one side and Republicans holding the other side in the Senate. But they got the Democrats have 51. So why can't the Democrats just push anything through that they want to push through? Well, because there's rules in place that the minority has the right to say that that's not going to happen, and they can stonewall and they can filibuster and hold things down where they can't get things moved through, and vice versa. Both sides, they did it the other way when there was a Republican House and a Republican Senate. They did the same thing. Politics are politics. You have multiple committees. You have multiple disciplines of sports involved in the organization. And so artistic people have a say in what the organization is going to do that affects speed. Speed has a decision that will affect art. Roller derby. The organization as a whole is huge. It's big. It's not one-offs. It's like the rule book was 78 pages. So lies the up above on how you make something happen. Every coach in the nation wants to change something. And let's just say the executive committee at USARS says, no, we're not doing it because, I think financially we may take a hit bottom dollar in the organization. So we're not doing it. And then it's not done. It doesn't matter that it was going to be better or would have been better. And it was 100% unanimous that the coaches wanted it. If the organization did not want to change it, they don't have to. And it's not even just about speed committee. The speed committee could, we had a regional reps committee. I was a part of the regional reps as well as I sat on the regional board for the Great Lakes Speed League, our region. And, when I went to my board meetings and I presented something in our regional board meetings to change how we were doing things to make it better, to include more rinks and not isolate rinks out of holding competitions, I got shut down. And I got shut down from one speed representative and 8 art, because we only had 2 speed members on a panel of 10. And the other 3 speed representatives from the regions, from the states, were all artistic people that, they used to, do some speed skating back in the day or something like that or whatever, but they don't show up at any of the league meets. They don't hold league meets. They don't participate. They don't coach. They don't speed. They don't have any kids skating speed. They're just artistic people that were part of our board. And if they didn't want it, and all it took us, and in my situations, coming in as a young person, new, the board was like, everybody was like 70 something years or 60 something years or older. And here I am 40, something years old. And I'm trying to bring some fresh new light on something. And instead I got squashed like a bug. You have no say. Doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter that I presented facts. And statistical data provided by the organization of USARS, and one coach, one board member that just didn't like me, got all the other artistic people to go with his point of view that was an opinion and a feeling, not fact. And it didn't get changed. So at the end of the day, would I say, yeah, it would have been great. It would be great in a perfect world. But then keeping in mind, every rule that you want to change, if you want to change the rule, it doesn't mean that 90% of the population wants that rule changed either, just because you want it changed. So going back to USARSS and its concept and its inception, when it was presented to our league, just so you know for the facts, and that was back in 2017, right at the end of the season, it was presented. And the ideal of it is we could present an organization that was going to offer a card that was literally 50% the cost of the other organization. That's quite appealing for the average person. 50% less on a card. That's a significant difference. $35 card versus an $80 or $85 card. That's a big difference. And I know it's only $40 over the course of a whole season. What's $40? It's not that big of a deal. That was just part of it. Then you had the track layout. Everybody really embraced and loved the track layout. The relay re-entries. Everybody loved the way that the relay re-entries are on the new rule set versus the way that USARS was doing it. That switched. Not everybody, but everybody that switched enjoyed that. the rule sets in the sense of there's a victim rule. So at the end of the race, if me and you are battling 1 and 2, and I throw a really crappy pass on you and I shove you out, you retain second position, I take first, the officials can declass me, give you first place and put me in second. Not DQ me. They don't have to DQ me. We were checked out. Third place, we lapped twice in the 30. So they're not even a factor in the race. It's just me and you. Well, because I rode you out, I hit you a little bit hard, pushed you a little bit wide going into the turn, throwing a bomb pass, let's just say. But you didn't fall. You didn't lose any track position other than what I took from you. They gave you your track position back. They put me back behind you where I was, and they rewarded us for racing.
Well, doesn't something like that just make it easier for people to, they can make mistakes and still be, and still come out on top? I mean, take into example, Erin Jackson qualifying for the Olympics. She number one female sprinter in the world, consistently winning, events, but goes into the Olympic trials and she bobbles and gets to third. She's still fast as can be, but it puts her in the third time slot, which knocks her out of qualifying. Now, of course, we all know what happened. Brittany gave up her spot and she's there now, but Erin was very clear that, hey, look, this is just the race I skated. I made a mistake. I did this. Now I'm all for essentially not penalizing the person who somehow, like, something happened to them. But doesn't a rule like that just make it to where somebody has an opportunity to essentially screw up and it's like they have a second chance, rather than, hey, look, this is just the result. This is what we have to deal with. I mean, I guess the only other way to get around that is to eliminate the judgment calls. Is that, is there a criteria that qualifies for what is riding out, how far somebody has to get pushed or something like that? Do you guys create a criteria, or is there still human judgment within that allows for this victim rule to kick in?
There is still human, interaction on that. There's still human judgment on that. And there's still some judgment calls. I'm just going to be honest about it, just so you know, and I don't hold any punches on it when I say it. If it were up to me and I could come up with a way to regulate it and remove all judgment calls, I would do it. I understand it's impossible to do that in realistic terms. But the problem I have with judgment calls, and you've seen it over the course of your lifetime, how many times have you seen somebody's judgment take a championship away from somebody that was inaccurate and false? But because they couldn't go back, Erin Jackson, they could not go back and look at the video that was not an approved video that proved her innocence and that she should be moving on, or that she should have won that gold. Wouldn't it have been great if we could have removed that judgment and actually used that video so that we could have actually gave her the rightful spot that she was deserving? I hate judgment. I just hate judgment in the sense of your judgment of one thing versus my judgment of one thing may be different, even though we're operating under the same rule sets. It doesn't mean that we can't have a different interpretation or take the bias out. I like the athlete and you don't.
In Erin's, and obviously in Erin's situation, it was not whether or not something happened that justified her getting to take a spot. It was whether or not she qualified for a reskate. Had she fallen, right, the rule with her is, had she actually fallen to the ground, then the rules committee could have granted her a reskate. But because she simply bobbled,
right,
it was okay. She didn't go to the ground.
Sure.
And again, this is determining whether or not she goes to the Olympics. And she's flat out saying, hey, look, it's like any given Sunday. This is the way the rule is. And I skated my best race. So
the victim rule, just so you know, it's not about protecting the perpetrator. The victim rule is about protecting the person that got taken advantage of. The declassification is not about protecting, it's not about picking on anybody or changing a rule that's going to affect people in a negative way. It's about encouraging racing, because now we can battle into that turn, and I can understand that there's now a rule that says I'm not just automatically going to be DQ'd because we came into contact. And hence, therefore, in a heat situation, if me and you are going out and trying to make it out of a heat, and I take you out, you're in first place, and that last lap, I take you out, everybody else goes underneath. You get up, and by the time you go through, you're in last place. There's a victim rule that says, yeah, the officials can say, you know what, Jason had it won. He would have won had Chris not taken him out. The victim rule says that you make it to the final. We still take all the top placements, but now you also will go to the final, because we're not going to allow you not to be at the final because Chris made a bad decision.
Well, there's the video that everybody's, talked about, the Jeffrey Puckett. And I don't know the other, is it Dustin or Danny, the other skater that he took out?
Was it Dustin Hepson? I don't know.
I think so. Okay. So there, I did have a discussion with Jim offline about this, was essentially to say, okay, Jeffrey takes out this other skater.
Yeah.
And essentially, because the pack's moving, it's an elimination race. And so by the time the pack comes around, Dustin's eliminated.
Yeah.
Under what you're talking about, there's the possibility that the elimination could have been frozen for that lap. Dustin would have been allowed to re-enter the race.
No, he would have still been eliminated.
Okay.
Even under USARSS rules, he would have been eliminated.
Okay.
The victim rule only applies on the last lap.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because it encourages racing instead of just sitting back. It encourages racing.
Well, see, that's something I see an issue with personally. I know that when we skated, we were extremely physical. I talked about this the other night, was that when we would have practices. Of course, I know the environment at Champions in the 90s was completely different than anything that exists today. Considering the amount of, we had, at any given time, we had 5 people on the world team. We had 12 national champions on the floor at any given time. Countless numbers of, look, I talk about this all the time, and I've actually, I feel bad because there's somebody that I always miss who was a phenomenal skater, who was national caliber skater. He just never did it on the national stage. A guy named Billy Rainey. Him and his brother, phenomenal skaters. It's just for whatever reason, but we had those guys, Billy and Stevie Rainey. We had Gerald Kendall, Nathan Whitaker, Jason Lee, Colby Anderson. We had all of these skaters, and Paul, and you had people like me and Fred, who we are, I'll be 40 here in a couple months, but when we were skating, we were 13, 14 years old, skating against 18, 19, 20-year-olds. And we were being instructed. Paul would set up practices with the stated purpose of being physical, where the purpose was to throw the latest pass possible, that it to wait to the corner to the last minute. And we weren't going top speeds. It was more or less our version of warm-up speeds. So, so it's a little bit different, but what we were doing was creating an environment where you're getting used to getting hit, where you're getting used to being bumped into, where you're getting used to have to throw these obscene passes, or the pack's being jammed up and you're forced to go around. You have no opportunity but to move up, or you're just going to come to a dead stop. I've been to practices. I've seen it. I've been to other races, and it appears that with a lot of the new rules out there, the way things are structured, the skaters today cannot deal with that physical, just altercation, if you will, on the floor. It's a little bit different. Is y'all's organization set up to allow the kids to race and bump into each other? Was that a prime reason for getting all of this set up?
No, again, I think that the prime reason for it was to get new organizations involved, to get new rinks involved, new speed teams. That was the primary reason for the USARSS's inception. It wasn't about taking over USARS. It was about taking over a grassroots movement and getting the beginners and getting the rinks that did not have rinks, that did not have teams rather, either back to having teams or new rinks starting teams. That was the whole purpose of the USARSS. It was never about taking over as the organization that governs the body. It was about providing a platform to grow and get back into the rinks by getting the RSA and the rink owners back involved in the sport, because USA Roller Sports, as you said, moved so far away from the rinks that they were no longer a factor in the sport. It was its own entity. We just happened to train there. You know, it's kind of like you go and you buy your pop from the store, but you drink it at the park. You know, so that's what it's all about. It's taking out years ago, and I wasn't around, and I'm not really the person to speak to. There's far smarter people than I that have been around. Jeff Foster, Jay Ingram, Renee Hildebrand, all these, you know, Joe Cotter, all these guys they've lived it. They've seen it like you. They're older than me, a lot older than you, and a little older than me. So, and just for the background, so you know, I was on a speed team back in '78. So I grew up on quads. I grew up when the coach cussed you out. I grew up when the coach told you to get the H, get the F out of the rink. He didn't need you because there was 3-4 other boys that wanted the spot on the 4-boy. And I grew up in that era when you had to be physically tough, and physical toughness was a key factor. Now, what you just said about the not being so tough, I think that's something that just societal wise, it's happened over years, not just in skating, it's everything. It's people are so happy about everything versus, it just happens, you know, stuff happens, you move on. Nope, I'm going to sue you because this happened. Everybody's super soft in the reality of life. You know, back in the day, you know, your grandfather, your great grandfather would have put a roof on with a hammer and a bucket of nails on his hip. And today, if you know, you don't give that crew a pneumatic nail gun where they can just go tap, 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 they're not putting a roof on. Right. They're not going to do it. It takes too long. It's too much work. It's too heavy. Oh, screw that carrying a bundle of shingles up a ladder. I'm going to get those things roof delivered where there's a big old hoist that'll lift it up there because I'm lazy and I don't want to pick the stuff up. I'll spend the extra money. And not only that, technology in general has made us softer. You know, there's a study, and I don't remember the exact numbers. There's a study that basically says, and I know that there's always the one-off, so you can't say everybody, but the general population, your father has a stronger hand grip strength than you. And your grandfather had a stronger grip strength than your father, and your great father had a stronger grip strength than your grandfather. And the reason why that is because as life has moved on, technology has made things so much easier and simpler where life isn't as physically demanding. Heck, you get in a car and every car standard has automatic transmission and automatic steering, power steering. Back in the day, you had to manually shift your car, and to get automatic, it was a luxury. Yeah. And you didn't have power steering. Everything was manual steering. So you had to physically turn that wheel. You couldn't just turn it with your finger. You had to physically crank it over. Society has made things easier. Therefore, we've become less strong. And I think that, you know, there was a point where I think in skating in general, I think skating went from a point of just being, everything was brute strength. Everything was super strong to a point of now we flip to this technical aspect. Everything's so technical versus brute strength. It's almost impossible for just a brute strength person to win something, with the exception of maybe the 100. The 100 is the only thing where technology really hasn't taken over because it is about sheer brute strength and quickness of getting down that straightaway. But in the course of 30 laps, I don't care how strong you are as a person, like Chad Hedrick, right? The guy could just go and go and go and go and go and go. I would really love to see what a Chad Hedrick in today's day and age, not taking his training and skill set from before, but a Chad Hedrick, the same person, everything that's made him who he was, trying to live in today's society. I'd be real curious to see how he would turn out, or Joey Mantilla. I'd be real curious to see how he turned out. And just the expectation. I think society has groomed us to be mediocre. There's no such thing as being the best anymore. Mediocre is accepted.
Yeah, like we're somehow supposed to be ashamed of being the most dominant one out there.
Correct. And or it's okay that you're a loser.
Fourth place participation trophies.
Yeah, Yeah. How about 8th place? How about the guy that didn't even make it off the starting line?
Yeah, fuck all
They
that.
got well, no, I'm just saying though, society-wise, we've gotten to a place where it's, it's good race, good job, buddy, blah, blah, blah. And I promote as a coach. I don't believe in wins and losses make you a champion. I think it's how you perform yourself makes you a champion. Erin Jackson didn't get the gold. I think she's still a champion. My podcast that I had for 8 years, Skate Talk with Boomer and a Coach, we interviewed Erin Jackson. And I just reshared it today because I had to go back and look it up. I had an opportunity to interview her when she was just a young lady, and an inline speed skater.
She's great.
She was
she?
a phenomenal. There's second to none, right?
Yeah.
She's got the most perfect attitude.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can't coach that.
No,
you cannot coach that. She's born with it.
Yeah.
I think her upbringing, I think her coaches had a good part of it, but it's kind of like natural gifted sprinters. Sabian Tinson, this kid was just a natural gifted sprinter. Boom, just gone. The guy could rip out like nobody's business. Did he not work hard? Did he not train hard? No, he absolutely trained hard and worked hard, but God gave him the ability to rip like he does in that 100. That's why he was so quick.
Yeah.
And we'll see great things out of Sabian, I'm sure, down the road, because he's got a great work ethic. However, and the other thing I think a lot of people take away, forget about, and they don't give credit for our society today in the skating world. A conversation I had with Sean Patterson. I don't know how well you are familiar with Sean Patterson, right?
Oh, yeah.
So I interviewed Sean Patterson on my podcast, and as well as just as a coach, call him up and talk with him on the phone, and pick his brain on things. And his comment to me was, for Worlds, we took 4 people, right? That's what they took. They took 4 athletes.
Mm-hmm.
He placed 5th all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine, and let's just be honest, back in the day, you could have taken the top, let's say 20 athletes, take the top 20 men, pick any of the 4 as our world team, they go and get medals.
Right.
Right? That's what they have. Today, you go to ODN, there's like, I don't know, 28 men, maybe 30 guys that are trying out for the team.
Right.
Maybe.
Right.
And of those 28 or 30 men, there's 4 at the top that shine. And a lot of the other people are just gaining experience or trying to get there. My son was one of the ones that he was good, but he wasn't as good as the top guys when he first started skating, when he was trying to become a world team member. He just wasn't there.
Yeah.
And there's this huge gap and that's why when you look at the world team pretty much always has the same people on it until somebody moves out of the division or quits the sport.
Right.
The same people at the top of the same. And it's always kind of been that way. But the difference was when you skated, there was 10,000 members.
Yes.
I would say venturing, just a guess, I don't know their numbers, so I'm only guessing. I think USARS might have 600, 800 speed skaters today. Maybe 1,000.
Yeah.
Maybe 1,000. I don't know.
Actually, Fred and I was over at his house last night and we were talking about this. Obviously the numbers were huge back when we skated. Roller skating around the world had just completely taken off. It was the number 2 sport behind soccer. The numbers were out there. Of course, that was the big push. We were trying to get into the Olympics. Everybody had the opinion, the artistic people at USAC, they refused essentially to allow speed skating to go in without having figure skating going in. And the Olympic Committee was essentially saying, we don't want figure skating. We want speed skating. Nobody gives a shit about figure skating. Everybody wants they want speed skating and they want hockey. Wait a minute.
I think it's fair to say it's not nobody, because every artistic skater loves their sport and could give a crap less about speed.
Sure.
And I know a bunch of artistic people. I love them to death, and I think they got a great craft. So I don't.
I grew up figure skating. I mean, that's actually what I did before I went to speed, and so I appreciate it. But when you're getting on the world level, and you get to the people that are actually going to participate in this, you have 100,000 inline speed skaters around the world at this time versus 2,000 figure skaters. So, but when we would go to outdoor nationals in 1999, it was my second year junior. It was Fred's first year senior. It was my last year on the junior world team, and it was his first year to skate senior to try out for the senior world team. They got on the track, and obviously Fred was a phenomenal athlete. He was he could turn his brain off and just go. Well, he ended up winning, for example, the 1500 meter on track. He won the 1500 meters first year as a senior on track. And apparently that pissed off the powers that be. That was the Verducci skating team. It was Chad,
Okay.
Derek, Keith. Actually, Sean Pattison was on the team.
Okay.
Jonathan Webster was there.
And that's a list of great skaters, right?
Absolutely. They're phenomenal skaters to this.
Yeah.
I mean, phenomenal people. But they decided, well, I guess for whatever reason, it pissed, the powers to be off that Fred won that 1500 meter. What resulted in that was that at Outdoor Nationals, they had the rules for some of these events were like first place from the heats plus the fastest times would qualify for the finals.
Yeah.
Well, in their semifinal, everybody out there kind of came together and said, let's go for time. I mean, in their semifinal, there was fourth, there was Chad, and who else knows what's out there. So they're like, we can go as fast as we want to go. Well, Chad decided, no, I'm not going for time. I'm going to go for the win. So Chad gets out in front in the 1500 meter and he slows
it down.
Yeah, the whole time. Well, fourth, a phenomenal skater that he is, he's like, fuck this, I'm going. So he takes off. He ends up winning the 1500 meter, the semifinal, goes on to win the final. Yeah. But nobody else from that heat ended up qualifying for the final because Chad had slowed the time down.
Chad slowed the time down so much and he couldn't make it up.
Right. Well, so from that point on, they're like, screw this little guy. We're gonna team skate him, and we're gonna make sure that our guys go in. Well, again, the same year, 1999, the same thing. The same people end up making the team: Chad, Derek, Keith, and I believe it was Dane Lewis that ended up qualifying that year. By the way, Dane never got his accolades. Dane was a fantastic skater, both indoor and outdoor, and he just never was celebrated enough. I don't think that he was just too quiet. Great guy, super quiet. But anyway, my point with all that is that yes, they took 4 people. And at that time, I just named off just on Team Verducci, like I said, Chad, Derek, Keith, Sean, John Webster. That's 5 people right there. Then you add in guys like Chad Bergelauskas, fourth, Dane Lewis. You add in, you could literally just in any given race, there was probably 10 to 15 people that had they picked any one of those people or any 4 of those people. Steve Carter. I mean, God forbid I forget Steve Carter. But you could take any one of these 15 people at the senior level, put them on the world team, and they're going to go to worlds and they're going to win a large amount of the titles. The same thing applied on Charlie Craven, but the same thing applied on the junior level where there was me, Adam Miller, Harry Vogel, Ryan Cox, Joey Colazzo, the list goes, BJ Robinson, the list goes on and on and on. We had a massive contingent of qualified athletes where you couldn't go wrong by saying, hey, we could just pick these guys, but instead we want to see them compete.
Right.
Today, you're first off, you're hard pressed to get enough people to make meet or to make, quarters and semifinals up at some of these competitions.
Correct.
And then on top of that, it's like, all right, we know who the best people are here. How are they even going to perform at Worlds?
Well, I think that societal wise, as far as the skating in general in the United States, again, because we've accepted mediocrity. So the reality is I don't have to be the best in the world. I just have to make the world team. Right?
Yeah.
Because if I make the world team in the United States, I can say I made the world team. I don't have to go and get a medal. I don't have to go and do great at the world level. I just have to make the team. And that's the concept, I think, that we got away from holding down those top spots and driving to get those top spots. And I would say that, again, along with just society in general is getting weaker, because technology came along from the 80s through the 90s and now into the 2000s. There's so much more things out there available for people to pick and choose from, but the numbers just aren't there. And let's be honest, most speed skaters are derived from a skating rink.
Yeah.
You know, and back in the 80s, when you went to a Friday night session, you had a line that went out in the parking lot halfway down the building to get in for session. And today, most skating rinks, you can count everybody on almost two handfuls. You know, 20 or 30, they get 50 people. They're like, yeah, this is awesome. I'm like, awesome. This is two jam lines on the 13 and over skate with Planet Rock jamming. This ain't awesome, right? I mean, I grew up in that era where we had 8, 10, 12, you know, jam lines going on session.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Today, and I blame I blame inlines. I blame inlines because let's just be honest, inlines are not fun session skaters.
No.
Yep. I apologize to all of you inliners that diehard inliners that wear your inlines to sessions. I'm not saying that your, you know, session skating on inlines is horrible. I'm just saying it's not as good as quads for sessions. And I got to plug my phone and I hope it doesn't mess up the video when I flip it here.
Oh,
so, okay, perfect. But yeah, the society's changed. There's not as many people skating today. Therefore, okay, so I coached football years ago and I was involved heavily in football and we had a couple teams. So one of the schools here in town, Snyder, had 150 kids that tried out for the freshman team, 150 kids for the freshman team. Okay. The other people made up the rest of the sophomores, juniors, and seniors made up the varsity. We had another school in town at the time called Elmhurst High School. They had 17 kids that tried out for the team. 17 kids tried out for that team. That's the entire team. Offense, defense, all grade levels, 17 kids. One school had 150 for the freshmen. What school do you think was probably a powerhouse football team between the two schools?
The one of the 150 kids trying out.
For freshmen?
Yeah.
Okay. So when you skate 8 heats of senior men, yeah, you're going to have top-notch athletes in the final. And you're going to have a final that's stacked. And you're going to have probably a couple of heats that any one of those guys could have won the final or any one of those girls could have won the final. However, because there was 12 of you, only 6 make it. So 6 others had to sit and watch the race. And today, I only got to be as fast as the next guy. So it's ironic that you said that. So just so you know, the USARSS rule sets are all derived from World Skate. The rules are supposed to mimic and match as best as possible so that any inline skater, any quad skater that skates indoors that would like to transition outdoors, same point system. It's a 100-meter radius versus a 200-meter radius on the track. It's the same track. It's the same rules in the sense of declassifications. It's the same qualification requirements. It is first place in the next fastest times in the middle distance. It's not just 3 and 3, and there happen to be 5 in one heat that any one of those guys could have won. Guess what? All 5 of you can make the final if that heat is faster because it's on the fastest times. You know, the sprint's the same thing. It's qualifying with the fastest skaters making it out to the final because, you know, you can't time sprints. 100 meters or 100 meters. It's not the first 100 meter. It's multiple sets of hundreds until you get down to the final where you get the fastest skaters, you know? So, but so the rules.
Wouldn't what you were just talking about though kind of go against the creating a separation between and creating 2 organizations? I mean, like you said, if you've got 8 heats and you're creating more competition, they're eventually, I mean, you're going to have a powerhouse final where anybody in some of these quarters and semis could have won. Yeah. But the same thing kind of applies when you take in 2 organizations. Now, as long as no one's being said, hey, you can't skate over here if you skate over here, yeah, that's fine. I think if you're creating more opportunities for the people to skate, that's fine. But sure. if all you're doing is separating them out, but at some point, doesn't it make sense to try to unify everybody to at least for like, say, some type of national championship? to unify everybody together to say, all right, at least at this point, I mean, Fred and I were talking about this. Again, you've got Major League Baseball. So if you play in an American League stadium at the World Series, you're playing with the the designated hitter rule. Obviously, you have your parabolic track and you have your oval shaped tracks. Okay, so wouldn't it make sense to somehow unify on a national at least at a national championship that forces both organizations? Because look, you have interleague play in Major League Baseball throughout the year where, the Giants may go and play the Dodgers or something like that. Or, anyway, you have those throughout the year where everybody is going to go and compete at these different events. But at nationals, don't you want to have the best of everybody that's there and force them to essentially skate both tracks? Doesn't that make better skaters? Wouldn't that make for better competition to say, okay, well, we're in this city this year, so it's going to be on this particular track? Or if you have the nationals where, it's in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they have the floor that they bring over there, or it's in Cedar Rapids, where, okay, you've got the senior man division, and all right, the shorter distance is going to be held on the USA speed skating style track, and then the other two distances will be held on the USARS style track. Wouldn't that unification make for better racing overall?
Yeah, I think that obviously having a unified force with the numbers that are there. Again, if you took 5 of the 10 and I took 5 of the 10, then we've divided our forces, and the 10 together would be a stronger force than the 5 and 5. So I guess what I'll say to that is, using that same analogy, if you grew your numbers to 20 and I retained 5, or let's say I lost 2 and I went down to 3, should we have stayed together? We had 10. You grew your numbers to 20 with your way that you wanted to do things and changed it from our organization that me and you were together in a company. And you said, I'm tired of doing it the way you want to do it because I don't think this is working. I'm going to do it my way. I want to run my business my way, my construction company my way. Now you're building 10 houses a week and I'm still building 1 a week. Would you say that it was a good thing that you broke away? Or would you say, well, we should have stayed together because we had more equipment and things were just easier doing it the same way it's always been done?
Well, I guess what I'm looking at, obviously my opinion is kind of skewed because I didn't experience. I mean,
sure.
we call it the Naira track. But at the same time, we weren't allowed to skate that. It was just coming out.
USARS hammered down on Joe Cotter.
That's right.
So people had to pick and choose, and
that's right.
Drove him out. They drove him out.
So we would practice it every once in a while, but we were never actually able, for especially guys like us that were on the world team, it was there's no way in hell you're going to skate a Naira event.
Yeah.
You risk your world team membership.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm looking at is that eventually you have a world team. The goal, I believe, for the sport is to at some point put the best representation out there of the USA athletes and put it out there. If you have these different organizations, does it affect that at all? Does it affect, because look,
no,
anybody can skate that. It doesn't matter whatsoever.
What do you mean anybody can skate what?
It's not going to matter whether or not, like you said,
there's only one way you can make worlds. There's only one way you can make worlds.
Outdoor nationals.
Currently, right now, outdoor nationals.
Now,
skate USARS.
Now, and I guess that's my point, is that if you have somebody like USARS that is essentially the designated governing body, that they're the only ones that can send people to worlds.
Correct.
Doesn't it make it where I don't want to, again, because competition should be competition. People should be able to compete.
Yeah.
Doesn't it make it to where as if they're the most, we'll call it legitimate organization?
No. No, I think you're just, when you say making worlds is important for everybody wanting to make worlds, right? So our outdoor nationals, our world team makes up less than 1% of the body, less than 1%. So it's kind of like saying, I think from now on, the US government should just, every rule and every government policy should only affect the 1%ers and the richest people in the world and screw everybody underneath. Doesn't matter. Right. You don't matter. And if you want to be a 1%er, get there. So you can be a part of that class. Otherwise, screw you. So again, what I'm going to say is, and I'm going to point out some facts, because I think it's important that we talk about facts, not just feelings and opinions. Since the split happened, in which case, just so you know, it was presented to our league at the time, the Great Lakes Speed League. It was presented to all the coaches to try this new organization with a new set of rules. Never once did they say you could not go to indoor nationals. Never once did they say you could not have USARS teams, which, by the way, most of the teams in our region still maintained USARS statuses. However, I got a team of 30-something skaters. I had one skater that went to outdoor nationals this year. That's it. So does it make sense that I maintain every one of my skaters have to stay with USARS because we're not going to do USRSS? Does it make sense to force them into that organization? And I don't force them into any organizations. I say we can pick and choose. We took a vote as a team which organization we wanted to support on the league level, competing in league meets. And my team, by majority, wanted to go with USRSS for several reasons. Cards were cheaper. Coaches' cards were $40. Amateur cards were $35 versus a $100 coach card that I have for USARS, which I still get, and or an $85 amateur card. Sanctionings. Okay, well, USARS is $150 per day for a sanction. I don't know if it's changed. That's what it was. USRSS is $100 for the year. I can run however many events I want out of my rink. Once I'm sanctioned, the rink is sanctioned for the year for $100. I can run a 5-day event, $100. I can run 10 races throughout the season, $100. Through USRSS, through USARS, it's $150 a day, every day that you hold an event. My rink for a charter through USARS is $100. Through USRSS, $0 to charter your rink. Just sign up. When you hold an event through USARS, and Jim Larson spoke about his situation with his suspension. Through USARS, you have to have a carded tabulator, you have to have a carded meet director, carded chief official, every check-in person, everybody's got to be carded at $60 or $70 for a card, unless you're an athlete, and then I think you get it for free. For an official's card, if you're an athlete, I think you can get it for free. If you're a coach, I think you get it for free. But there's a charge, and you have to have carded people to run an event. USRSS, I need a competition manager and a chief official. That's it. Competition manager is a meet director. Chief official or lead track official is the same thing. I just need those two. That's it. I don't have to have a carded tabulator. I don't have to have a carded starter. I don't have to have a carded person that stands on the outside and replaces a pylon if it gets knocked off its blocks. I can put any parent in that position if I want at the league level. Now at nationals or at American Championships, which I got the shirt on representing this past season's American Championships, and we do have an indoor national championships. It's not indoor nationals, it's the American Championships. Same format. And inside this one, they've actually incorporated what's called the Grand Champions Race or Race of the Champions. They take the top 3 out of a couple different divisions, getting everybody into what's called the Grand Champions Race. In the Grand Champions Race, they race a whole nother block of short, middle, and long. And the winner walks away with $200 or $2,500 check, a $1,500 check, and a $1,000 check for first, second, and third, men and women, equal money that was put up by a donation. So there was a $30,000 donation put up for $10,000 a year for each season for 3 seasons. That was what was originally put up. I don't know if that's going to continue on. I hope so. But from the league level, our league voted, just so you know, back in 2017, we voted. We had more than enough votes to switch our league to USRSS. At the time, an hour before the meeting was to take place, where we were going to discuss the results, because it was an email mail-in ballot system, the league was switching to USRSS. Then a coach, an hour later, gets to the meeting, says, I changed my vote. And I'm sure there were politicking going on, right? This coach is friends with that coach, and oh my God, I can't believe you're doing it. You're going to hurt us. So they made a decision. They switched their vote, which meant we didn't have enough votes to carry it over. We were short by 1 vote to carry it over to switch it. So it was going to stay USARS, which was fine. The teams that wanted to switch it said, we'll just go and start our own league using this organization as a platform. Now, that's what Jim alluded to with the split. And at the time, it was roughly about, I'm going to say like a 40, it was probably 40, 60% split, or 60% with USRSS and 40% stayed with the Great Lakes Speed League for USARS. Since the split, just so you know, our league has now grown to, we skated 220 something at Kentucky here at the Thoroughbred Classic back in November. We had 185 signed up for the meet that's tomorrow, by the way, in Anderson, Indiana. And every meet that we've skated, we've had more than 150, 160, which is growth because we've added 5 new rinks that weren't competing in the league back when we were the Great Lakes Speed League.
Now, are these athletes, are the growth that's hitting there, are these athletes that are coming over from a USARS rink, or are these brand new athletes to the sport altogether?
Some are rinks that had teams years ago and started a new team up. Some are switchovers. I can tell you, for instance, my team, again, everybody went USRSS, but I have like 5 or 6 that stay getting USARS cards. And because we only have 5 or 6, I've allowed my athletes to card with other teams so that they can get relay options, because I don't want them to go to an event and only race 1 race as a bell skater. I'm okay with my athlete being called a different name. Everybody knows my athletes. We've been around for 16 years since I've been coaching, and there's nobody at indoor nationals, there's nobody at an invitational that doesn't know my kids are my kids, no matter what uniforms they wear. Just like a sponsored kid that wears a sponsored uniform, everybody knows what team they skate for. So I've allowed my kids, and several other teams within our region have allowed their kids to go and skate for other teams. But that doesn't mean that they couldn't skate for their home team. If they wanted to, they could get carded through bells and go skate USARS. Nobody's been restricted. Now, as a coach, if you only got 10 days of vacation, you got to pick and choose what events you can go to. And I got American Championships. It's going to be held over the course of a week. I'm going to use a week of vacation. I don't have an additional week that I can go and do USARS as well.
Right.
So I got 35 I'm taking to American Championships, and I got 3 that want to go do indoor nationals. Where am I going to go as a coach? I'm going to go and support the 30 skaters. And by the way, every one of the USARS kids that went and did USARS also did the American Championships.
I was going to ask that. How many, I mean, how big of a crossover was there between the American Championships and the USARS Indoor Nationals?
I apologize. Could you repeat that?
The crossover between how many skaters competed like at the American Championships and also competed at the USARS Indoor Nationals?
Well, I can't speak for everybody. I know that I had a couple on my team, and only one that actually went to, or 2 rather, that went to indoor nationals. So I know that.
Which one's first? Which is indoor nationals first or the American Championships first? Which one?
American Championships are first. They're in June, and usually indoor nationals is in July. Yeah. And then outdoor nationals is just whenever they can get track availability. And,
yeah.
So, which I never really understand. Like, we know right now where the Olympics in 2 years is going to be the country. It's going to be holding it in 4 years. We know. I don't know why we don't know why we don't think forward enough with outdoor nationals. Again, though, keeping in mind, you're talking about 1%.
Yeah.
It's 1%. So what are we worried about? As a coach, do I want my athletes to make worlds? Absolutely, I want my athletes to make worlds. But I also have 38 other skaters on the team that have to buy a card. You know, I figured up the numbers that first season we switched over. The amount of money, league meets didn't change. Hotels still cost the same. Gas still costs the same. Entries into the event still cost the same. Sanctioning's changed. That changed. The cost of sanctions, the cost of running the league changed. But as far as from a parent's perspective, going to a meet didn't change any in cost. They're exactly the same. The new league runs exactly the same cost as the old league in the sense of how much a parent pays. That didn't change. But what did change was American Championships was an open championships, no regionals to go to. USARS still had regionals up until last year. They still had regionals.
Right.
So you take into account more expensive card. You take into account you have to go to regionals to qualify for indoor nationals. My team in one season collectively saved $40,000 of expenditures in the sport in one season. Now that's collectively for the team. It's probably insignificant for one family in general, but because it's spread out over all the families, not just one family. But it's $40,000 that our team did not have to spend that season, and 40,000 is a big number, you know. So
yeah.
Now also what I'll say is again, keep in mind through this organization, just so you know, we as an organization have started the first that I know of in our area, as far as like up here, Penrod, Robert Penrod. I don't know if you're familiar with Robert Penrod. He used to run an outdoor race. It wasn't a series, I don't believe. I think it was just a set of races on the weekends down at a 300-meter apron on a velodrome, bank track, cycling bank track. They ran on the flat, which is 333 meters or just under that or whatever. That was probably, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago they did that. I've never seen any racing at the league level outdoors. Seen 5Ks and 10Ks and marathons, but I've never seen racing. Our league has started 4 years ago. We did one race a year outdoors, and it was raced like a meet. It was a sprint, a middle, and a long. Actually, there was kind of one long, two longs, a middle, and a sprint. There was 4 races. And then we did that 2 years in a row, one meet, one meet. Then we went to a series. So we actually do a 3-meet series now called the Three Rivers Point Series. And we're doing that on a school track, a 400-meter track. The same thing that they qualified skaters for outdoor nationals this year on a 400-meter school track. We're racing on a 400-meter track. 3 races, 3 separate races, and it's sprints, it's middle distances. And we're changing the distances that they race so that it's not the same every time. It's something different. You're going to do the 300, you're going to do the 100, you're going to do the 500. You know, there's 8 races, there's 10 races that you got to race. And it all goes down to you can win first, second, or third at the actual outdoor event. But then at the end, everybody that's collected points over all 3 of the series, we have a champion for the series. By the way, we're using the same rule set they use at Worlds. We're using the same point series they use at Worlds. Everything's the same. So when you say, how does that help the sport? Well, it helps the sports, and we're preparing people to go to outdoor nationals and qualify and actually be able to race international competition with the rule sets and the way that it's designed to do. And I'm pretty sure that USARS is doing that now at the PAD series. Nothing in our area was doing that. For the last 15 years, really nothing was doing that. Even the races we did outdoors, they raced it with the indoor rules of 5, 10, 15 for point placements. You know, they raced it outdoors like indoors using indoor rules and whatnot. They're not the same. They're not the same. So we've grown in rink sizes as far as how many rinks. We've grown in the volume of skaters at each rink that are competing. I don't know if that's economically wise. I don't know if that's just the pandemic changed things. I don't know. Yeah. But here's the thing is every athlete that comes into my facility that's never skated before, because there's 2 teams in my town. One of them is a USARS team as well. I tell everybody about that other team. And I tell every athlete I have about USARS and the opportunities that are there. Now, Jim brought up the point of that the split of the league destroyed it. I'm skating 175 tomorrow. Did I destroy anything? Did we destroy anything? We had 9 meets this year in our league. where we're skating 150 to 200 plus at an event. Did we destroy anything? No, we didn't destroy anything. The USARS league, yeah, they're skating 50 or 60. I think they've gotten some new growth. They've recently changed some stuff, just so you know. They stopped doing like a whole full season of meets and they started throwing in like training camps. So they all collectively as a group, USARS, and they invite us, by the way. I went up as a coach. The coaches got me involved to come up and be a clinic leader, which I went up and did on the first one. Had a great time. Took a bunch of my athletes up there because anybody can go to it. You don't have to be USARS. It's all about skating indoors. It's a USARS track. It's fine. And then skating outdoors at these training camps and learning outdoor techniques and learning indoor techniques and building a stronger region for skating wherever you want to skate. I don't promote USRSS and or USARS. I promote skating. That's how we grow. But I also like the idea of, just so you know, the minute the $35 USRSS card came out, wasn't too much longer after that, USARS came out with a $45 amateur card. Kind of cool how that works, right? Competition made them drop that card for the entry-level kid that doesn't go to invitationals, it doesn't go to regionals, it doesn't go to nationals. They just compete in a 2 or 3 local league meets. Instead of buying an $80 card, now they can buy a $45 card. Yeah, you're welcome.
Now, I mean, look, I could tell you, you know, again, I always go back to this. The environment at Champions in the 90s was completely different. I mean, Paul was brutal to us. He literally demanded the absolute best. It wasn't about, hey, he honestly didn't give a shit about if we were going to win some local meet. His mindset to us the entire time was, if you're not making the world team, you're not shit. And quite honestly, that's how he treated, and that's how a lot of things were expressed. Now, even went as far as having a second coach for the other group of people, so to speak. You had the national rated team where there was like 40 kids, 40 people that were on this team that would practice on a regular basis. And then there was another coach that essentially oversaw another 30 or 40 that was like beginner level, intermediate people. Yeah. But he bred this environment that I think overall made us better. It made us stronger. It certainly pissed a lot of us off, but it was, hey, second place is the first loser. He would say that to us all
Ricky
the time.
Bobby.
Yes.
The Ricky Bobby syndrome.
And this was way before Talladega Nights came out, but he would literally say, second place is the first loser. If you're not making the world team, if you're not pushing to make the world team, then you're not doing anything in this sport. Granted, a lot of that was based on the fact that Chad was his son, and it was everything that we would do would pretty much be modeled after what Chad was doing. So that was the goal for everybody. But it obviously bred a tremendous environment down there with a tremendous amount of winners and world champions and national champions.
That's team culture, though.
Yes. But doesn't that spread towards everybody, like outside of that? Like, doesn't it automatically make other teams want to do that? I mean, you know, we had, you don't see that as making other teams want to strive and achieve that kind of success?
No, and it's not an opinion. It's a factual statement when I say no. I created a chat page, private chat page for the coaches in Indiana. I invited all the coaches in Indiana to be on it, to share ideas, to encourage each other, to hold each other accountable, to help each other kind of grow as teams. 0 participation. 0. I went on to create another group. I called it Coach's Corner. I went outside of the state, went to the region, and incorporated a handful of beginner coaches that were all beginner coaches, and all the beginner coaches I put on it. And then I put a couple of advanced coaches, okay, that were tier 1, level 3, level 4 advanced coaches. These are world team coaches as well as nationally ranked coaches I had on here, because I thought, what a great way to funnel information and knowledge. Well, it turns out you can take a horse to water, but you can't make them drink it. Yeah. Right? So Chad Hedrick's dad owned a rink. Chad Hedrick's dad wanted his son to be somebody great. Chad Hedrick's dad did what he had to do to put his son where he wanted to get his son to. And by building a team around him, it was self-serving to some degree because that's what Chad needed. If Chad didn't have a whole built up national status around him with a bunch of skaters that were all fast, he would never have had to be that fast to be the best in his rink, in his city, in his state, in his region. So that being said, how many coaches today, and I see it all the time, how many coaches today are coaches today because their kids are skating and the rink doesn't have a coach? A lot. There's a bunch. I would love to know the numbers from either organization. I would love to know the numbers of how many coaches carded themselves as coaches, and then 2 years later, we're not getting a coach's card ever again because their kid was no longer skating. I bet you it's a lot. Bet you it's a lot. Because rink owners aren't coaches anymore.
Right.
See, when you're a rink owner, you have an investment in growing your speed club. Why? Well, because when you have a speed team and you sell skating equipment, you have sales that way. And then you have your speed team shows up to session and they're bringing in other business and your sessions are fuller. And it's kind of like a, you scratch my back and I'm going to scratch yours. And in today's society, we got rid of the rinks because we didn't want their input anymore. They're money hungry. We got rid of them. We went our own way. And then what happens? Well, now you don't have powerhouse teams of 80 and 90 anymore. Weber's probably the only one that I know of that has 75, 80 skaters that skate on a regular basis out of his own area. Most of the other teams you see, even like Joe Cotter's Team United, he had this powerhouse team. Well, but not everybody came from Kansas. Some came from Illinois, some came from Pennsylvania, some came from Colorado. I mean, he got skaters from all over to join his team to build a powerhouse team, but it wasn't homegrown, everybody from Kansas. You don't see those teams anymore. Team Florida used to be a huge team. Piedmont, High Point back in the day was a huge team. Fast Forward, big team. SOS, big team. All these teams are the Patterson's team, right? The Pattersons, if you separate them out, they don't have big teams.
Right.
Sean's got like 6 or 7 and Darren's got like 9 or 10 and his dad had, so you take 3 rinks and you put them all together to make one big powerhouse team. The Wolverines operated out of East and West.
Right. 2 rinks.
Steckities were over on the west side and Jay was over on the right side to create this 40, 50 teams of the Wolverines. It's not that way. Now the numbers are shrinking, the numbers are getting smaller, but every coach that comes in, just so you know, Jay Ingram, and I've had several of what I consider coaches I really look up to. I've been given a lot of accolades and pat on the backs and attaboys from everybody within the skating world, which I'm very appreciative and thankful for. But I'm still hungry enough that I'm not there. I'm not there yet. I got so much more to prove. I got so much more to do. What's your legacy in the sport? A lot of coaches, their legacy is, well, my kid's not skating anymore. See ya.
Yeah.
That's where it is. The Muses, they're still around. Even though the kids aren't skating anymore, you still see Mark around. He's still there. Cotter, he's still got a team going. Jay never had any kids in the sport. He's just been dedicated. Renee, she's still around. She's still going. Sammy Johnson, still going around. Eric Licata, still going around. Patty Laser has her daughter, but her daughter wasn't the number one. And she had all their other, skaters from back in the day that were world team members and whatnot, her legacy. The Pattersons owned rinks. Rink owners have a vested interest, but how many people are running a team or coaching a team that don't own a rink? I don't own the rink. The Dunlaps do, but none of the Dunlap family is even involved in my team. John always tells me, it's your team. It's your team. We're Bell Speed Club. It's the same name as the rink, Bell Skating Rink. I tell him, it's your team, coach, because he was my coach as a kid. It's your team, coach. I'm just running it for you. I'm trying to do what I think you would want done to make it the best team we can make. And I'm trying to impact it. I got big dreams and I got big goals. I want to get it as a school sport. I don't want it to be just a rink sport. I want it to be a school sport. Yeah. I got a whole plan of attack on how to make that happen. It's slow. The wheels of progress move very slowly in our sport. Overnight successes become overnight failures quickly too.
Yeah.
You know, anytime you see someone that launches really quick up to the top, it always seems like they come right back down really just as fast as they go up. The people that slowly grind their way to the top seem to hold on to the top. And isn't it weird, like when you think about the world teams? So, and you mentioned a bunch of names of world team members, including yourself. And I apologize, I never knew who you were until I actually saw your interview. No disrespect.
Hey.
Ronnie Miller won like senior man quad nationals in 1984. Yeah, nobody knows who the guy is. He was a national champion back in the day when there was 12 heats of senior men. Nobody knows who the guy is. It's interesting how Chad Hedrick is. I'm getting blown up here because we got our meet. Sorry, we got our meet coming up, and so I don't know if you can still see me, but
it has your name up there right now.
Okay, yeah.
There it goes.
My phone just okay. So Chad Hedrick, right? Chad Hedrick was this great skater, and I'll throw Chad Hedrick. I'll throw Keith Turner, and who was the other one that was like right there? There was like 3 or 4 of them. Team Rollerblade. Derek Downing. Okay, Derek Downing. There you go. So let's just say those 3 guys. And I know that there's a whole team, but let's just say those 3 guys, right? What was the next group? You notice how it didn't go like it was Chad Hedrick, Derek Downing, and Keith Turner, and you didn't have the situation where Chad Hedrick disappeared and now it's Derek Downing and Keith Turner and let's say Harry Vogel, right? Because let's say you, right? Jason. So and then Derek Downing goes away and now it's Keith Turner and it's Jason and it's Harry Vogel and it's the next guy. It's Chad Horn, right? It's the next guy. It went Chad Hedrick, Joey Mantilla. And I'm not trying to exclude anybody because there's a whole bunch of people that are absolutely amazing. And then it just kind of washes away. It just washes away. We've never had that. We built to the top. We held this high status. And the next level of skaters coming in and the next level of skaters. And Harry Vogel, I interviewed him multiple times on my podcast. And he said that same thing. He said he was the benefactor of skating under a Chad Hedrick and learning how to be a pro level skater and learning how to skate that world level. He had the opportunity and he loved it. He loved being the sacrifice skater, even though Chad didn't need it. He loved the opportunity to go out there and jam up for him or lead him out for a finish, you know. But who did he pass that to? Who did Joey Mantilla pass it to?
So I'm glad you brought this up because I wanted to kind of go back to something you'd said earlier about Chad and the environment and all that stuff. Everybody who knows me knows that Chad and I are not like we don't see eye to eye. I mean, but I've known him since I was like 10 years old. We've had our conflicts. I mean, hell, he dated my sister for a couple years. So like,
oh, that makes him public enemy number 1.
Yeah. I mean, great. Luckily we were younger, but I mean, hell, his sister was the first girl I ever kissed behind the skating rink counter. So, I mean, our families go back a long ways and just growing up being competitive, there was conflict there. What I can say, and I will acknowledge this and, you know, again, not being a huge Chad fan from the sport. I'm a huge Chad fan today as a person, as a human being, as an individual. Big fan of his today. I think he's done a lot of amazing things in his life since skating. So huge kudos to him. But as far as like the way we were back then, this is very hard for me to say, but the environment that was built there was for the benefit of Chad, but Chad did not need us. I'm going to say that Chad didn't need us. Chad was a workhorse. He was a powerhouse. I actually made this comment the other night on the JD happy hour, was that, you know, Chad, when he was a teenager, when we were younger, he was in his late teens, early 20s, Chad still did some roller hockey. And one night Chad was out on the floor, and Chad's not the biggest guy. Well, he got out on the hockey rink and he smarted off to some much larger player. And this player smacked the shit out of him with his hockey stick, with the butt of the hockey stick, and broke Chad's jaw.
Oh, wow.
And Chad had to go get his jaw wired shut.
Mm-hmm.
A week later, after the swelling started to finally go down, Chad came out. We're training, like we're getting ready for like big competitions and everything. The season's just firing off. Chad came out there with his mouth wired shut and still whooped the shit out of us skating outdoor. And you're talking about people like Cheryl Azell, Ashley Horrigan, Fourth Lacey, me. We're all world team members. We're all national champions with another dozen national champions out there. And Chad still came and kicked the shit out of us. He was a powerhouse. He knew how to work. Now, Paul did end up leaving the sport once Chad left the sport. When Paul decided that, or when Chad went to ice skating, he left the sport. He was no longer coaching anymore. It's now transitioned.
What happened to the team?
Well, I'll say this. Paul actually threw me off the team. He kicked me off the team in October of 1999. That year, 2000, was the highest numbers that the team had ever seen. In 2000, the numbers just started plummeting. For whatever reason, it was that time, it was around 2000 to 2002, the numbers just tanked. Chad actually didn't leave Inline. I think he ended up leaving Inline around 2002, 2003, something like that, transitioned over to ice. I believe he was on the 2006 Olympic and 2010. Because it was Torino and another one.
Mm-hmm.
Paul actually left, the team itself, for whatever reason, in that time frame of 2000 to 2002, just started tanking. Skaters were leaving left and right. They were just burnt out on the team, on the sport, whatever, and they were just gone.
Yeah.
This was even before Chad left. Fourth and I were talking about this last night. In 1999, Chad did not skate any indoors at all. He did not skate indoor nationals. He did not skate any regionals. Nothing whatsoever.
He's concentrating on his outdoor.
The world team, traveling. He was on Verducci at the time, but Rollerblade and all these, they were starting to have larger events around the world. So he was traveling for these World Cup events, things like that. Skated no indoor whatsoever. And so the sport, what we saw was already starting to transition. And the numbers had already started to dwindle in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
That created a huge vacuum because people like me, people like Fourth Lacey, people like Keith Turner, people like Derek Downing, people like Dane Lewis. It wasn't like you had Chad leave the sport. You had
a mass exodus.
50% of the top 50% of the top athletes in the entire sport left. And so, there was this massive vacuum, and it was filled with somebody. Look, not a huge Harry Vogel fan either, just because he was, I tell everybody, look, I was an asshole. Like, I was an arrogant shithead when I skated. Harry was worse than I was. Like Harry was way worse. And so Harry could have filled that gap because he continued to skate. Harry could have filled that gap, but his head was way too big for the rest of the world. Fourth, he got burnt out on it. Fourth could have carried on that mantle, but he got burnt out on it because he was treated like shit by everybody under the sun. And so, there was this huge vacuum. And then, so yes, you have the skater who continues to go, like Joey Mantia. He's a phenomenal skater. That's not to take away from Joey to say, hey, Chad was the best skater that ever existed. That's a fact. It is a pure fact that Chad Hedrick is the most decorated athlete of all sports, American athlete of all sports at the world level than any other athlete out there. And that's including somebody like Michael Phelps, Michael Jordan, Shaun White, Brittany Bowe, Erin Jackson. Chad is the most decorated athlete in all American sports history. That doesn't take away from the fact that somebody like Joey Mantia is an amazing athlete, phenomenal athlete. It's just different. It's like literally, and this is not to say, Joey is like a female athlete or anything like that. But I actually talked about this on one of my shows, is if you take the fastest 500 meter times between male and female athletes at the Olympics, what you're going to see is you're going to see male athletes skating the 500 meter in the 34-second range, and you're going to see the female athletes skating in the 36-second range. There's actually the fastest times from 2001. There's damn near a 3-second difference between the fastest time that was skated last year by, it was actually a Russian female and a Canadian male were the two fastest 500 meter times. And it was damn near 30 or 3 seconds apart completely. So there's just obviously a huge gap between, male and female athletes. The female athletes are still phenomenal athletes. They're amazing in their own right. Now transition that to say somebody like Chad and Joey. Joey's still a phenomenal athlete, but if you were to put those two head to head, Chad's going to destroy Joey. Chad has proven it both at the inline level and at the Olympic level.
And I think that isn't that just a matter of that, why can't somebody be better than me?
No, look, and
you know what I'm saying? Like, I could work my whole life to get to a place where I barely suck at something. If I really want to do it, I'm going to dedicate to it. It doesn't matter. I'm only going to get to a place where I barely suck. I'm just never going to be great at it, but it's what I want to do. Why can't somebody, like, let's say, okay, so then I would say, that being said, does that make Joey the number 2 guy? Would he hold down the mantle of inline skating as the number 2 guy ever to come out of our sport?
Yeah, and I guess I kind of get your point. It even to be at
and
that
that's okay.
level, absolutely. Even to be considered in that light. And that's what I mean is it's not to take away, but what you said was, there's absolutely, it went from when Chad left, it wasn't like Derek Downing took over the mantle and the next thing you know, Derek was the dominant world champion out there. What you actually started to see was the other countries. It wasn't even the United States. It wasn't even athletes within the United States. It was the other countries like France, like Pascal
Colombia.
and Colombia. Jorge Botero built up a huge program down there. Now look at who they are, Juan Carlos and Jumbo and all these guys. But then you go to Italy, where you had people that were, for whatever reason, they were competitive in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then all of a sudden, boom, they explode. And you have these huge programs that are. So I guess the point is that it's not necessarily about the one athlete. The one athlete leaves, but for whatever reason here in the United States, there was a massive vacuum of athletes from the year 2000 to 2010.
Well, I don't know all the history on it as far as the time frame, the monies and all that. I know that there was a point of time where inline skaters were being sucked out to go to ice.
Yes.
And to field the ice programs. And I've seen a couple of athletes over the course of my, skating in the leagues. I've seen a couple of athletes that have left to go to ice. They go in and everybody loves them because they're so strong. And then after they actually learn how to skate ice, they're not as strong as they were because inlines resist. So you're so physically strong to skate inlines. You go to ice, there's no resistance. You're super strong because you're super fast. You're strong, so you're fast, but you don't have the techniques. By the time you learn the techniques, you lose a lot of the strength that you had from skating your wheels, and you either become mediocre or you embrace it like a Chad did, or even, I think Joey is doing well. Brittany obviously has done very well. Jillian Record did really well when she switched over. Jessica did well when she switched over. But at the same time, it's not just taking people from the sport. You ever wonder why when we get people that become world team members, why they don't just go into the classic division or the master division? They skate all the way till they're 30 years old. And instead of saying, okay, I'm going to finish off my classic, or I'm going to go into the master division and skate master division at indoor nationals, or I'm even going to skate senior. I'm going to skate against the senior men at indoor nationals. I'm not going to go to outdoor nationals anymore, but I'm going to go and skate senior men because I'm still strong enough to run with the fastest of the young guys. They don't. It's almost like I've reached this level of height, and it's like I'm not going to downgrade myself to going back to that beginner level of where I had already came through, because I'm starting to lose a step and I'm not quite as strong, or I don't have quite the foot speed turnover. So I just leave, or life starts. I have a kid, I got a career, I got to start working. So I can't train as much as I'd like to. See this all the time. Watch Brian Talley, hats off to Brian Talley. The guy, phenomenal world team member all the way up. Thought he was quite honestly a jerk when I first met the guy. Yeah. And I learned to appreciate who Brian Talley was, because like you, he was a jerk, but he grew up and he, got married. Him and Jamie, they have this marriage. Both of them are skaters. He still skates. Yeah. The guy still trains, he's trying to do what he can do in the sport. He's still trying to have fun. He's still sponsored. And for him, I think he wants to win. Yeah. But you know what he did? He said, I'm going to go skate Grand Classic and I'm going to crush the records. I'm just crushing the records, and I'm going to skate master and I'm going to crush the records. That's his goal, right? He's just, I'm going to be the strongest guy so he didn't leave. He stayed. And I respect that. There's a bunch of athletes you see, there's a handful at the top that made it to the top that are still around. My son, he was a world team member for 5 times, and he kind of left the sport early 20s, decided he, missed out on so much as a kid that he wanted to, go to the movies. Heaven forbid a 21-year-old wants to go to the movies. Right. So he took this hiatus, and then slowly he started coming back, and now he's coaching with me. He's taken initiative. He's working hard on trying to develop the next kid. He still skates our leagues. He still skates as an elite skater in the elite division. Mm-hmm. And he's one of the top guys in our region. Still to this day, he's one of the top guys. There's a couple of kids that have came along now that were, 19, 18, 20-year-old, that they give him everything he wants and more. Colton Miller can hand him his butt when he wants. And the guy doesn't train. He's just phenomenal. And Christian loves skating against the guy because he's that next guy. But he's kind of like passing the mantle down to this next kid. And we got some other young kids now that are up and coming. And Christian's like, look, here's the deal. If you want to be a world team member, you want to be a pro level skater, you want to be a national champion, you got to come through me. And then when they get through him, okay, when they can beat him on a regular basis, he goes, man, that kid's fast. Who's the next one that can't beat me? I'm going to pick on him now. Yeah. And he just holds on. Now he's 26. He's still skating. He's trying to hold on to the sport, and he's still trying to stay relevant. At the same time, that's one-offs. It's all one-offs. All these people have left the sport. Coaches, again, today, the coaching isn't what it used to be. You go back to whatever, 30 years ago, every coach could recite the handbook front to back, cover to cover, because they knew the rules inside and out. Yeah. Today, most of the coaches don't know anything about the rule book other than the starting commands, what the track is supposed to look like, and, what they perceive to be a write out. Yeah. And I'm just as guilty. I don't know the handbook inside and out. I didn't take the time to read it and study it and learn it and memorize it. I just know how to coach, right? I learned the rules enough that I could pass the coach's test. Through USARS, I promoted myself in taking tests all the way up to a level 3 coach. I just missed making an elite status of coach. I applied for it, but I was denied. The good old boy club, and people just didn't like me, so I got denied. Yeah. I don't understand it. Like you talk about growing, how we're supposed to grow if there's all these. So you brought up something earlier. I want to go back to something you said, because this is interesting, because we talked about the split. Mm-hmm. And then you said, why wouldn't it just made sense to just change the rules, right? So I will say exactly that same thing you just said. When Art decided they didn't want speed to make its way into the Olympics, why didn't they just change the rules? Because we had 25 years ago, because 30 years ago.
I agree. And that's actually where something I was going to bring up. You're absolutely right. They should have changed.
So 30 years ago, it didn't change, and nothing's changed in 30 years. Yeah. Is it just that the coaches don't want it to change? Let's take a straw poll. Who would like to see the inline speed skating in the Olympics between me and you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's 100%. Why can't we change it?
Look, that was the carrot.
Speed skater that doesn't want it to be there.
That was the carrot that was dangled for us for years, all the way through the 90s. It was the carrot that was dangled. Oh, hey, we're going to be an exhibition sport. Hey, we're going to be an exhibition sport. Yeah. Obviously the problem that we experience is that, USA Roller Sports, USAC at the time, was developed with the vast majority of the people were figure skaters. Speed skating, yes, existed, but largely on ice. And there just wasn't enough speed skaters, and speed skating wasn't popular enough because you would still go to the rink and have jam sessions. And so people aren't going and joining the speed teams, they're joining the figure teams. And so you still had this huge population of figure skaters that are in control of all that. We just, for whatever reason, the rink owners who were still in control of that, they weren't willing to upset the apple cart by getting all these fucking figure skaters out of the picture. They weren't willing to do that. They just.
So we still haven't changed anything though. It still hasn't changed.
Yeah.
If you take a poll today on all the coaches in the sport, every coach would say we want our sport in the Olympics. Speed coaches, every one of them. Nobody would say no.
Yeah.
Why has it not changed? And so what I'll say is,
we're blackballed. My understanding is right now that we've created such a bad taste in the USOCs and the different world organizations' mouths, because everybody, look, for us at the Olympic level, it's about viewership. I mean, they at the Summer Olympics, they just announced that they're removing weightlifting altogether from the Olympic schedule because it doesn't get TV viewership. Well, everything here in the US obviously is predicated based on what kind of revenue it's going to turn by being on TV.
Yeah.
Well, you've got inline speed skating, and it could probably turn some revenue, but at the same time, I think what my understanding is we've pissed everybody off so high at the Olympic level that they're like, you know what, we don't even give a shit. We don't care.
Sure. And so changing of rules and modeling, rebranding ourselves, maybe that doesn't help either. But I don't know. Who's to say that 10, 15 years from now, a different organization than this organization comes along and rekindles areas and gets an inside line on different things and changes and makes huge changes for the future. Maybe it's your podcast down the road makes a big, I don't know. We don't know where it's going to go. But ultimately, everybody has to make a decision what's best for them. If you're a league level skater, what's the cheapest way I can go about skating my local leagues that I'm traveling 2 hours to go to on a monthly basis? What's the least amount of money I have to spend where I can stay relevant in a sport that's an expensive sport, as we all know, right? So how do I stay relevant? How do I keep my 30 athletes that I have? I got 32 skaters signed up for the meet this weekend. I'm the largest team in our region. And that's not because I'm great, by the way, because I'm not. You know what I am? I'm Chad Hederick that surrounded himself with a whole bunch of great people. You know, Tracy McBride is my right-hand person, as everybody would say, but I will say Tracy McBride is above me. I answer to her. I'm just a coach. She's the one that runs the team behind the scenes that nobody sees. All my parents that are involved. I got 5 moms that I can ask any one of them to do anything for me, and they'll do it the drop of a dime. The league Midwest Points Series is not ran by one person at the top. I'm the president of the organization. I don't run it. We have a board of 5 people, and those 5 people discuss and talk with the coaches, and we let the coaches make decisions. And we grow the organization through trying to do what's right for the athletes, what's right for the rinks, what's right for the coaches, not what's right necessarily for the organization. Because at the end of the day, the organization is nothing without you and I skating. You need skaters. It starts at the bottom. It doesn't start at the top and funnel down. It starts at the bottom. You build the base at the bottom, and that next level is going to be smaller. We already know that. It's how pyramids work. The higher up you go, it doesn't run up like a tower. It runs up like a pyramid.
We just don't want them like a Bernie Madoff. USARS is more of a Bernie Madoff pyramid.
No, we don't want that for sure.
Oh,
but
yeah.
know, so here again, I'm excited. I'm excited for the sport. I'm excited for USARS. And by the way, I hear about things that are coming in the pipes down the road. I hear about discussions of things that are coming. I think there's some exciting things coming through USARS. I think that we're going to see some really cool stuff happening in USARS. And I'm excited. I'm excited because every USARS team that they're diehard USARS, they're going to benefit from that. And every new coach coming in that wants to skate USARS is going to benefit from changes in the organization. Stephen Carter's doing great things in the organization to try to change things. I know that Speed Committee is now actually Speed Committee. It's not art. There's actually just speed coaches in this, basically in the Speed Committee, and athletes.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. You're still talking about an executive board. You're still talking about a financial board or committee, and you're still talking about the executive director. You're still talking about a bunch of people above the Speed Committee that makes the final say in USARS. They have a lot of bureaucracy within the organization. It's hard. The wheels of justice turn very slow in that organization.
And why does
Good
the
or bad?
bureaucracy exist? Simply for the self-preservation of its own existence. That's why bureaucracies are here, just to perpetuate their own existence. So
yeah,
I get
so what
that.
I'll say is, again, a lot of the red tape in USRSS they cut out the red tape.
Good.
And when it started, let's just be honest, when USRSS started, it started as the Inline Inline Roller Hockey Association. They were the ones that were actually on their own. They left USARS and did their own thing. And then when USRSS started, it started as a subsidiary of the IHA. So all of our cards are actually insured through the IHA for speed. That way we have more people getting cards, makes the cards lower in cost because there's more people getting them. So we went under their umbrella. I will tell you, the first season, I think we had like 300 competitors or something like that were carded. And now I was just in a meeting the other day. I don't remember the exact number. It was 500 and something competitors that are carded through the organization. That's a very good thing.
Yeah.
But think about 500 competitors, right? It's 5 teams from the 1980s.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's 5
absolutely.
teams.
Yeah.
It's not 100 teams with 100 skaters at 10,000. It's 500 competitors spread from Colorado all the way over to the East Coast.
Yeah, that's Champions, Stardust, High Point, Wolverines, Pattersons.
Done. 5 teams.
Yeah.
Now we had, I think it was like, I want to say 38 or 42 teams that competed at the American Championships this last year. We're currently at, like I said, 500. We've actually, a new league started down in the Jimmy Blair's area in Atlanta, that area. They've now started a USRSS league. We have the Midwest Points Series that has a league out in Colorado. They got a league up west.
Kelly Springer?
No, Kelly Springer is not involved. He's diehard USARS. Yeah, he's diehard USARS. And it's one of those things of, will he let his athletes skate USRSS? If not for himself, maybe for some. Dave Weber doesn't want anything to do with USRSS in the sense of USRSS, but he'll let his skaters skate it.
Yeah.
They have their own team and they got a different name. They're not called Emerald Coast with USRSS. They're called something else.
Gotcha.
Emerald Coast is USARS. So, but he's not restricting his athletes either. He's saying, if you want to skate it, go ahead and skate it. I'm fine with it. I'm not going to stop you from skating. I enjoy your skating.
Yeah.
So there's a new league that started up, Lenny Morgan up east in that Delaware, Pennsylvania area, whatnot. They got a league up there. John Rogers, the John Rogers Inline Talk page. He's the president of that league. They're holding USRSS events now. You're seeing it's not just the Great Lakes Speed League or Great Lakes region in Colorado anymore. There's now stuff that's going down the East Coast and up the East Coast that are USRSS that are starting to hold league meets and start leagues, and it's starting to grow. Is it pulling some people away from USARS? Maybe. I'm sure it is to some degree. I mean, is it pulling away permanently? I don't know about that. I mean, they're probably doing both. I know that High Point skates USARS religiously, but a lot of their skaters still come and skate the USRSS. They're dual cards. People in Florida are holding dual cards and skating in both organizations. Who knows where it's going to go? I just think good competition is good. You can't fault competition. Competition usually makes everything rise. And at the end of the day, right, cream always rises to the top.
Yeah.
So if your organization is going to fail, nobody can blame the sports failures on USRSS because it's been failing for the last 50 years.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's like,
yeah.
So we went from 10,000 to 8,000 to 6,000 to 2,000 to less than 1,000 members. And then USARSS comes along and they go, oh, they ruined the sport. Oh, they made up 1% of the failure this last year of the last 99% of failure that the organization has had over its course of its life from USAC to USARS. Like, it's been a failing organization over the years in certain aspects. You can't blame an organization or an entity or people. It's not a matter of, it's my ball, I'm taking it home. It's a matter of, hey, I don't like the idea that you hacked the shit out of my arms and you're not calling fouls. I'm going to go over here where we're going to call fouls. Yeah. I'm going to go over here where I have some say, because I can't change anything through your bureaucracy and red tape. If I can't change it your way, I'll go over here and start my own. And if you don't like that we're competing against you, step on board and get up here and start competing, because we're not looking back. You know, somebody made a comment to me, oh, are you going to have a meet? Because you're kind of like competing against the other organization. There was 2 meets actually over at one time in our area with USARS and USARSS on the same weekend, 2 meets. And a bunch of people was like, oh, I can't believe you're doing that. You're stepping on them. How am I stepping on them? And if you go out to eat at the Outback and I go out to eat at the Lone Star, I'm not stepping on anybody. I went out to dinner and you went out to dinner. We picked where we wanted to go. That's not stepping on anybody. You know, it's a matter of USARS people that are diehard USARS. Even if they cross over, they're probably going to do the USARS event if it's available. If they have to pick between a USRSS member that has to pick between 2 events, they're going to pick the event that they feel like best meets their needs and fulfills their whatever they're looking for. If I have a league meet and it falls on outdoor nationals and I got an athlete that wants to become a world team member, guess what? They're not going to go to my league meet. They're going to go to outdoor nationals.
Right.
That's what they have to do to qualify. And that's what we should be doing. But I digress. It's a weird sport that we're in, man. We fight so many different battles. You know, what other sport is it that you can think of that has 4-year-olds and 5-year-old little boys and little girls competing on the same floor, same rule set as pro level athletes? None. We don't have the same officials. High school has high school officials for basketball, and there's middle school officials for middle school basketball and pro level officials for pros. We don't switch the panel out of officials when the pros get out there versus when the tiny tots are out there. It's the same people. It's the same rule set. It's the weirdest thing ever either, you know, like school sports, how great of an opportunity. I coach the 6th graders. They move on to 7th grade. Yeah, they're out of my hands. I don't deal with them anymore. The 7th grade coach takes them on. I only got to deal with the new kids for 1 year, teach them something. And the 7th grade coach can be mad at me because I didn't. But me as a speed coach, I got a kid that skated for me ever since he's been 8. He's 26.
Yeah.
Like, wow. You know, I've had to develop him from here. I got to see his development or her development, watch him grow, watch him become something, and still try to hold on to him. So again, for me as a coach, I've always tried to grow. You're a beginner athlete. The next level is you want to be the next fastest athlete, the next fastest, and go into this and this invitational and then this national championships and this worlds and, you know, go to worlds, you know. So as a coach, I tried, you know, as a beginner, like a sponge, I soaked off of everybody. And I became an intermediate coach and I soaked off of everybody. Didn't take everything. I just took the little bits and pieces that I thought worked good for me. But you can't make other coaches have that same mentality, no different than you can't make everybody a world team member on your team. And it doesn't happen overnight. You know, it takes 10, 12, 15 years to develop a skater into somebody great, you know, truly. And how many athletes are going to stick around when the attrition is like, what, 3 years and then they're out? The average skaters, they're in the sport for 3 years and they're out. And, you know, so you got 10 skaters, 7 of them are gone within 3 years. You got the same 3 or 4 still left over. Okay, well, now you have 2 7 years from now. You got 2 of them still left. And maybe those 2 stick around. Those are the Jim Larsons that are 56 years old and still doing it or still wanting to be a part. They're still out there. They're the Jay Ingrams, you know. But we have to start retaining people. You either have to start pulling a whole bunch more people in, you know, there's not 1 million pounds of diamonds and 1 million pounds of coal that they dig up. You know, there's only 1 pound of diamonds in the million pounds they dig up, and the rest of it's just kind of garbage they have to go through. So they find another use for that. Well, it's a byproduct. We can burn it and make energy with it. So they keep whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we have to keep funneling in athletes to find the diamonds that are going to be those world team members. And the only way you can bring them in is by having a rink that has a team, by having competitions, by giving them a platform. If they're beginner kids, they need to have beginners. By the way, we have a beginner league called the All-Star League in our area that's a feeder program for our league. They're USRSS as well. They are all true beginners. That's what it's designed for. And most of the teams in our region send skaters to that beginner level thing, and it's about growth. Never really had that before, you know. And then not to mention the factor, I mean, you know how many leagues there are? I was really blown away when I started hearing these numbers. Like, and I can't name them all right now off the top of my head, but there was like 6 or 7 leagues. They're not affiliated with any organization.
Right.
They're just outlaw leagues, right? They just out there. Let's just get everybody together. Let's just go skate. No cards needed, no sanctions. No, if you fall, you get hurt. You got a little waiver you sign. It's weird, you know?
Yeah. Well, Chris, man, hey,
yeah,
I tell you what, man, let's wrap it up here. I think that what we could do is we could probably go on for like 3-4 hours talking about this.
Man, you can't get me to stop talking.
Well, why don't we, man, we'll put it away for right now, and we'll go and we'll plan on another episode, man.
Sure.
I really appreciate you coming on, man. You gave me a lot of great information. I know it's going to be a lot of information that everybody out there is going to really appreciate. Hopefully at the end of the day, I think that you, me, and a lot of these other people have the same exact goal in mind, which is just to grow the sport, whatever it takes to grow the sport, get the word out there, you know. So
if I could make a final comment, I would say to everybody that has heard something, stop listening and start researching. Go to the USRSS website and read their statement, read their rule book. You know, go to USARS, make an informed decision, not an opinion based off what somebody else told you. If we all reacted to what somebody told us about somebody else, we wouldn't have hardly any friends. So take the time to do the research, educate yourself, ask questions of people that know, not people that just heard. There's nothing worse than going off what somebody told you versus what somebody knows. Call the organization themselves. If you want information about USARS, don't ask me. Ask USARS. Get the information right from the horse. You know, don't get it from the cart. That's all I ask.
So there's a USRSS
website.
Yeah, was it USRSS.com? Or .org,
you know
something
what?
like that. We can find it.
Yeah,
I'll put it up. I'll put it up on the show.
Type it in. Yeah. And I'll send you some links and stuff like that because I got it. It's in my phone, but I'm on my phone. So I'll send you a link.
Yeah. Send them to me, man. I'll put them up there so everybody can see them, man. And Chris, again, thank you, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. The information you shared was phenomenal, man. I appreciate it. And I agree. I think that whatever it takes to grow the sport people should be doing it. And I think, I appreciate everything you're doing. Thank you for being out there, pushing a sport that I grew up loving, man. And man, but cool. Thank you so much, man.
When are you going to start skating again?
Yeah. I went to start skating
don't
again.
Sidestep it. I know. I heard the interview.
I bought the skates. Oh man, it was no good.
It's excuses.
Hey, I tell you what, I might end up doing is roller derby. Yeah. Okay. I'm more built. Look,
I'm not a roller derby person, but I'm a skater, and I can appreciate that.
Honestly, look, if I could find the time to simply train for the 100 meter, that's my body. My body is shaped for a straight line sprint, especially now I'm between 195 and 200 pounds. All I do every single workout, when I go to the gym, everything's about power. If I'm lifting up a 300 pound for deadlift, it's all about power. So if I did it, I would just train for the 100 meter. And I think it'd be pretty entertaining to see me squeeze into
Wouldn't it be awesome if you made a spot on the world team?
Oh, you know what? Hey, I'll be honest, Chris, I have no doubt in my mind that I would. And I'm not, and that's not to say anything about any other athlete. My mindset is not going to allow me to do skating unless I can put everything into it and I can go all out. And the goal is to make the world team.
Well, you got the tats, so you might as well just go derby.
Yeah. I look more like a Derby person at this point.
You're there. Well, I wish you all the best of luck on the Derby, and and Derby's big down in Texas, so there ain't like there any team you can get on.
Gypsy.
You got Gypsy's amazing.
Yeah.
Did you see the video of her laying somebody out? I just seen it recently. Oh my God. A girl went to track cutter and she shoved her out, and then she ran back. And then there was a skater that was like trying to move her forward, and she just flattened her. Yeah. It was amazing.
Well, I did an interview with Gypsy.
And then stared her down. After she slammed her, she just stared her down. I think they gave her a penalty.
Last month they had the roller derby world team. One of the 3 events for the world team tryouts was there in Waco. And I went there, and I actually did an interview with Gypsy and Stephen Carter. Got two different shows, 2 different interviews I did. And Gypsy talks about that hit. And and that's all they did was they gave her a penalty. She went off, and she was like, "Oh, okay, I'm sorry."
She was like this, going to the bench, like, "Did I just flatten that lady?"
Yeah. She loved it though. That she, awesome. I mean, what other, of course you can't do that in speed skating. You do it in hockey.
So I'm going to hold you accountable, and all your viewers, we're going to hold you accountable. Derby it is.
Derby, I think Derby would be, I'm trying to get Fred to do it with me. If I can get Fred to either speed skate or do Derby, we'll do it together. We'll do 2-man. We'll come out.
Well, all I'm going to say is, remember, there's doers and talkers.
Right now, I'm a talker. Right now, I'm just a doer.
Be a doer.
Okay.
Be a doer. If you tell me you're going to do it, then I know you're going to do it.
Yeah, I would love to do it. I would love to do it.
I'm coaching. See, I'm just coaching. I flipped into coach mode on you. I'm trying to get you. Hey, man, it was good talking to you. I really appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it, man. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
All right, bye.